Good evening, guys. All are getting my screen and voice. Please confirm. Right. So thanks for confirmation. Fine. So today, we are going to start Docker and Kubernetes, guys. Docker and Kubernetes. Docker and Kubernetes, guys. So what is this Docker, guys? Docker is a containerization tool. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool, guys. By using Docker, whatever the containers we are creating, we need to manage those containers. To manage those containers, we are going to discuss Kubernetes, guys. By using this Kubernetes, we are going to manage the containers which are creating by Docker. Docker is a containerization tool. Kubernetes is a orchestration tool. So what other orchestration tools are available? Right, along with this Kubernetes, we have Docker Swarm also available, guys. Docker Swarm also orchestration tool only. But in Docker Swarm, we have some limitations. That's why in the companies we will use to work with Kubernetes only. So that's why here we are going to discuss both, guys. Right, Docker Swarm and Kubernetes both we are going to discuss. But I'm not going to spend much time on the Docker Swarm. Right, I will spend more time on the Kubernetes only. See, guys, our course name is Docker and Kubernetes, guys. Docker and Kubernetes. Okay. Next, guys. Here, what we are going to discuss in this Docker and Kubernetes. Today, we will try to understand the course content, guys. In this today's session, first we will try to understand the course content, guys. From tomorrow onwards, right, we will start actual topics. Okay, right. First, coming to course content. First, I will start with the Docker, guys. So, what we are going to discuss in Docker, guys? See, guys, first we are going to discuss introduction of the Docker, guys. First, we will discuss about the introduction. We are going to discuss, guys. In this introduction, first we are going to discuss what is application. What is application stack? Right? So, if you want to deploy the application into the servers, what challenges are there? Next, guys, what is virtualization? Right? What is containerization? What limitations we have with this virtualization? Why we came to containerization, guys? Docker is a containerization tool. Before containerization, right, we will use virtualization, guys. So here we are going to understand what is virtualization, why we came to this containerization, what is the limitations we have with this virtualization, what is the differences between virtualization and containerization, right? Everything we are going to discuss in the introduction part, guys. Right? In the introduction, first we are going to talk about what is application. What is application stack? What challenges we have with the deployments? If you want to deploy the application, we have some challenges, guys. What challenges are there? Right? Before Docker containerization, right? We used to follow with virtualization. What is virtualization? We are going to discuss. Right? What is containerization? What is the differences between virtualization and containerization? Then we will talk about what is a Docker. Right, what features are there in Docker, right? All those things we are going to discuss in the introduction part, guys. Right, see here what we are going to discuss in introduction, guys. See, guys, first we are going to discuss, right, what is application. Right, next, what is application stack. Right, next here we will talk about what is virtualization. Next, what is containerization? Next, what is Docker? What is Docker? Docker is a containerization tool, guys. Right, before Docker, what we have, what we followed before Docker. So we will follow this virtualization concept, guys. Features, right? Features of Docker, right? All these things we are going to discuss in the introduction part, guys. Once this introduction part is completed, so then we will go to installation, Docker installation, guys. Docker installation, we are going to understand how to install the Docker, how to start the Docker services, right? How to stop the Docker, right? How to uninstall the Docker, right? So, right, Elastic Container Service, right? We have the ECS. ECS also container service only. AWS is providing ECS. That ECS also we are going to understand, guys. Okay. So here Docker installation we are going to understand. Next, guys, right? Next we are going to understand about Docker architecture. Docker architecture, guys. Docker architecture we are going to understand. And here what we are going to understand, what is Docker client? What is Docker client? Next, what is Docker engine? What is the Docker engine? Next, what is the Docker file? What is Docker file? Next, what is Docker images? What is Docker images? Right. Next, what is the Docker hub? Docker hub. What is Docker hub? Next, what is the Docker containers? Docker containers. What is Docker containers? Right. How to create the account in the Docker hub? Right. Account creation in Docker hub. Account creation in Docker hub. All these things we are going to discuss, guys. See, guys, Docker architecture. In this Docker architecture, we are going to understand what is Docker client, what is Docker engine, Docker file, Docker images, Docker hub, Docker containers, account creation in the Docker hub. Right, all these things we are going to discuss under this Docker architecture only. Once this Docker architecture is completed, so next we will talk about Docker commands, guys. We have some important Docker commands which we need to use frequently. Frequently used commands in the Docker, guys. Right, Docker commands. Docker commands. What commands which we are going to use frequently in Docker? First, once you install the Docker, we need to check the Docker version. How you will check the Docker version? Next, right, I want to know the Docker info. Docker info command is available. Next, if you want to know about anything, right, we have help command. Docker help command is available. Help command is available. Next, Docker images. Docker images command is available. Next, Docker pull command is available. Docker pull command. Next, we have Docker login command is available. Docker login. If you want to log in into Docker hub, this login command we need to use. Next, Docker push command is available. If you want to push any image into the hub, then we need to use this Docker push command. Next, right here, Docker rm command, Docker remove command, Docker rm command, etc. So like this, we have several important commands. Frequently used commands are available in Docker. We are going to understand all these commands, guys. First, we are going to understand frequently used commands, guys. Once you are familiar with all these commands, next, right, we are going to understand how to write the Docker files. Guys, here we need to write custom Docker files. Based on our project requirement, we need to create the Docker images. If you want to create the Docker images, first you need to write the Docker file. Here we are going to understand how to write the Docker file. Right, writing Docker files. Writing Docker files, guys. Right, here we are going to discuss how to write the Docker file. Here what we will discuss, guys, here we have some important keywords are there, guys. Inside the Docker file we will use some keywords, guys. We need to understand each and every keyword, guys. Each and every keyword we need to understand it here. What keywords are available, guys? Right here, first here, creating Docker file. Creating Docker file, guys. Creating Docker file. We are going to create the Docker file, guys. Docker file. Right now here, right, we need to understand all these keywords, guys. Right, keywords, right, which we used in the keywords used in Docker file. Keywords used in Docker file. What keywords, guys? Here we have from keyword is available. Right, from keyword is available. Next, maintainer keyword is available. Maintainer keyword is available. Next, we have copy keyword is available. Next, we have add keyword is available. Next, we have run keyword is available. Next, we have cmd keyword is available. Next, we have, right, entry point keyword is available. Next, we have volume keyword is available. All these keywords we are going to understand, guys. All these keywords, right, where we will use these keywords at the time of writing the Docker file. Inside the Docker file we will use these keywords, guys. Inside the Docker file we will use all these keywords, guys. When we will use from, when we will use maintainer, what is copy, what is add, what is run, what is cmd, all these keywords we are going to understand. If you want to write the custom Docker file, first you should know about all these keywords, guys. All these keywords you should know, then only you can able to write the custom Docker file. See, guys, up to now what we are going to understand, guys. First, we are going to discuss about the introduction of the Docker. Right here, we are going to understand what is application, what is application stack, what is virtualization, what is containerization, what is Docker, and features of Docker. Next, we are going to see Docker installation, how to install the Docker, how to start the Docker server, and how to stop the Docker, how to uninstall the Docker. All those things we are going to discuss. Next, we are going to understand Docker architecture. Here, what is Docker client, what is Docker engine, what is Docker file, Docker images, Docker hub, Docker containers, account creation in the Docker hub. Next, guys, if you want to work with Docker, right, we should know some commands, guys. Frequently used commands are there, right? We are going to understand those commands also. Docker version, info command, help command, images command, pull command, push command, login command, rm command. So like this, we will understand some commands also, guys. Right, next we are going to understand about Docker files. Right, if you want to create the custom Docker image, first you need to create the Docker file. How you will create the Docker file, that we are going to see. If you want to create the Docker file, right, inside the Docker file we will use some keywords. We need to understand those keywords, and each and every keyword we need to understand. These are the keywords: from keyword, maintainer keyword, copy keyword, add keyword, run, cmd, entry point, volume. All these keywords we are going to understand. Okay, up to here clear, guys? Is my voice is not audible to others? What about others? Right, Rajesh, please check with your end. Others are getting my voice properly. Fine, guys. Once it is completed, so next we are going to understand Docker images. Docker images, guys. Once you created the Docker file, from that Docker file, we need to create the Docker image, guys. From the Docker file, we need to create the Docker image. Docker images, guys. Docker images, guys. Here first we need to understand the base image. First we need to understand the what is base image. Right, image structure, right, internals of the Docker image, right, how that image will build, guys, right, triggering the images, right, all those things we are going to understand, guys. Right, here we are going to understand images. If you have the Docker file, how you will create the Docker image from the Docker file, or else inside the Docker hub we have so many images are available. How to take those images, right? So all those things, how to push the custom images inside the Docker hub, everything we are going to discuss, guys. Everything we are going to discuss. How to run the image, how to inspect the image, how to remove the image, how to prompt the image, everything we are going to understand. See, guys, right now here, and here what we are going to understand, understanding the base image, right, understanding the right, base image. Right, what is image? That base image, guys. Base image we need to understand. See, guys, inside the Docker Hub we have hello world image is available. That is the base image, guys. We will understand what is that hello image. Hello world image we will understand, guys. Right, next we will understand image structure. What is the structure of the image? Image structure we will understand. Next we will talk about internals. Right, internals of the Docker image. Internals of the Docker image we will discuss. Internals of the Docker image. Next, guys, right, Docker build process, guys. Docker image build process. Docker image build process. Docker image build process. Docker image build process. Next, guys, tagging. We need to tag the image with our account, guys. Then only you can push that image into the Docker Hub. Right, tagging images. If you want to push any image inside the registry, first we need to tag that image with our account, then only we can able to push that image, guys. How you will tag the image with your account? The tagging we are going to understand. Tagging the images. Tagging the images. Next, guys, next here we are going to understand. Next we are going to understand. Right, see, guys, here image generation. Right, if you have the Docker commit, right, if image generation, if you have the Docker file, right, from the Docker file, how you will create the Docker image generation with the Docker commit. Docker commit, guys. Docker commit, guys. With the Docker commit we are going to generate the image, guys. How we will generate that image? Next, guys, how to run the Docker image. Right, run the Docker image. Next, I want to see in detail, guys. I want to see the details of the image. For that we have inspect command, inspecting the image. Next, guys, I want to remove the image, and I want to prone the image. Right, so all these things we are going to discuss in the Docker images, guys. See, right, first base image, guys. Let me open, guys. Let me open the Docker Hub, guys. Docker Hub. This is the public registry, guys. This is the public registry. Right, we need to create the account, guys. Right, we need to 1 minute. Hub.docker.com. Hub.docker.com. This is the public registry. We need to create the account in the Docker Hub. Here we can able to see all the images. All the images we can see. Right, if you want, you can use any of the image from this Docker Hub, guys. You can pull the image and you can run that image also. Click on this explore. Here you can see multiple images, guys. So many images you will get it here, guys. You need to create the account in the Docker Hub. We will see how to create the account in the Docker Hub also. See, guys, here I'm going to search for hello world base image. Hello world, guys. Hello world image is available. See, guys, this is the Docker hello world image. This is the base image. I will pull this image into my Docker and I will explain, guys. Right, what steps, what internals are there when you run the Docker image. Internals of the Docker image we need to understand step by step. What is the process? What is the cycle it will follow internally? That we need to understand, guys. Right, internals of the Docker image we need to understand, guys. This is the base image which I am going to use to explain the internals, guys. See, internals of the Docker image. Understanding the base image structure, right, Docker image build process, right. We need to, suppose if you create custom image, that custom image I want to upload into this Docker Hub. Guys. For that, we need to tag that image with our account, then only we can able to push. How you will do that tagging? And I need to generate the image from the Docker commit. How you will generate the image from the Docker file? How you will run the image? How you will inspect the image? How you will remove the image? How you will prone the image? All these things we are going to discuss. See, guys, here let me sign in into my account. For previous batches I have uploaded some images, guys. Some custom images I have created and I have uploaded those images into the Docker Hub, guys. Let me log in into my account, guys. Here you can see whatever the images which I have uploaded, guys. See, guys, this is my account. Here you can able to see the account ID, user ID. You can able to see. Here you can see all the images which you uploaded, guys. See here. Let me here. See, guys, all these are the images which I have uploaded, guys. See, all these are the images. If you upload the image, right, other people also they can download these images and they can work on these images, guys. See, right, this image is downloaded by 6 members. This image is downloaded by 9 members. This image is downloaded by 4. Right, this image is downloaded by 11 members. Right, this image is downloaded by 20 members. This image is downloaded by 39 members. Right, I have uploaded. Right, I have uploaded, guys. This image is downloaded by 11 members, again 7 members, like this. If I upload any image, inside the Docker Hub, right, this is the public registry. Everyone can see these images and they can use, guys. They can use these images. Right, how to upload? See, guys, here this is the image name. If you click on this, here, what is the image name, guys? Maven web application. This is the image name. We need to tag this image with our account, guys. Right, this is called tagging, guys. Right, we are tagging this image with our account and we can able to upload that image into the Docker Hub. Here we are going to understand how to tagging the images. All these things we are going to discuss in the Docker images. Once this Docker images is completed, right, once images is completed, so we are going to discuss Docker containers. What is Docker containers? Here we are going to discuss, guys. Docker containers. In Docker containers, what we are going to discuss? Running Docker containers from the images. Right, if you want to run the container, what you should have? You should have the image. If you have the image, from that you can run the container, guys. You can run the container from the image. Running Docker container from the images. Running Docker containers. Running Docker container from the image. Running Docker container from the image. Next, guys, I want to list out all the running containers. Right, in my system, Tomcat container is running, Ubuntu container is running, right, Nginx container is running, multiple containers are running. I want to list out all the containers. How you will listing out all the running containers? Right, listing all running containers. Listing all running containers. Next, I want to understand the container life cycle. Right, container life cycle. Container life cycle we are going to discuss. Next, how to start the container, how to stop the container, how to restart the container, we need to understand. Right, how to start, stop, right, restart the containers. Restart the containers we are going to discuss. Next, I want to remove the containers. Right, if there is no use, then why you are keeping those containers? I want to remove those containers. How you will remove the containers? How you will removing the containers? Remove the containers. Remove the containers. Remove the containers. Remove the containers. Right. So next, guys, here containers with dependencies, multi-containers, guys. And here we are going to understand multi-containers also. Container with dependencies, multi-containers. We need to establish the link between the multiple containers, guys. Container, dependencies with multiple containers. How to establish the link between the containers? Right, see, guys, I want to run one application, right? WordPress I want to use, right? MySQL I want to use, guys. Right, WordPress, MySQL, right, and Tomcat, right? These three containers I want to establish the link between these three containers. how you will establish, right? I want to use the Spring Boot application. I'm going to use the MySQL database, and I'm going to use some Redis cache. All these things I want to, right? I want to, right, establish the link between all those containers, right? How you will establish the link between multiple containers, we are going to discuss it here. Next, guys, right? So how you will start the containers in the shell? How to start the container in the shell, guys? All those things, guys. Container running containers, right, in running containers in shell, etc, guys. All these things we are going to discuss in Docker containers, guys. See, guys, what we are going to discuss in containers, right? How to run the Docker container from the images, how to list out all the running containers, what is the container life cycle, how to start the container, how to stop the container, restarting the container, how to remove the containers, right? Container, how you will establish the, right, connection between the containers. All those things we are discussing in the containers. Next, guys, after this Docker containers, we are going to discuss Docker volumes. Docker volumes, guys. Docker volumes we are going to discuss. For security purpose, we will use this Docker volumes concept, guys. Volume is nothing but what, guys? Storage, guys. Sorry, here, so volumes, right? Storage purpose, we are going to use this volumes, guys. Here, first we are going to understand advantages of the volumes. What advantages are there? Now I want to bind mounts, guys. How you will do the bind mounts, guys? Here I am going to mount it, guys. Volume, right? Over volume over bind mounts. Mounts are two types, guys, right? What we will discuss, right? What we will discuss all those things, guys, right? Volume over mounts, guys. Next, creating the volumes. How you will create the volume? Creating the volumes, guys. Creating the volumes, guys, right? List all available volumes. List all available volumes, right? Run container on volumes. Run container on volumes. Next, remove volumes, guys. Volumes are nothing but just storage, guys. Storage, right? Here advantages, right? Bind mounts, volumes over bind mounts, creating the volumes, list all available volumes, run container on volume, remove the volumes, guys. All these things we are going to discuss in Docker volumes, guys, right? The next important one, guys, in Docker is Docker Compose. Docker Compose we are going to discuss, guys. This is also very, very important, guys. And here, how to install the Docker Compose. Docker Compose installation. Right? Next, what is Docker Compose file? We need to create Docker Compose file, guys. How to create the Docker Compose file? Next, guys, check the validity, guys. We need to check the validity of the file, guys. At validity, check the validity of the Docker Compose file. Check the validity of the Docker Compose file. Right. Next, run Docker Compose. Next, stop the Docker. Next, guys, scale the containers. We need to scale up and scale down. Guys, 1 minute. Sorry, guys, something happened suddenly here. Docker volumes, right? Docker volumes, advantages. Now here bind mounts, right? Volume over mounts. Okay, fine, guys. Docker compose, guys. Here's Docker compose installation, Docker compose file. Check the validity of the Docker compose file. Run the Docker compose. Stop the Docker compose. Right, next here, scale, right? Scale the containers. Scale the containers, guys. Right, these things we are going to discuss in the Docker compose, guys. Right. So next, guys, after Docker compose, right, we are going to discuss Docker swarm, guys. But I'm not going to spend much time on this Docker swarm, guys. I'm not going to spend much time on this Docker Swarm. Why? Because for Docker Swarm, we have the alternative Kubernetes. In the companies, we will use Kubernetes only. That's why I will spend more time on the Kubernetes only. Here, Docker Swarm is container orchestration tool. Container orchestration tool, guys. Docker Swarm is container orchestration tool. And what features are there in Docker Swarm? Features in Docker Swarm we are going to discuss. Next here, next Docker Swarm, it node manager. Docker Swarm node manager. How it will manage the nodes, right? How it will manage the nodes. Next, how to create the worker nodes. Create worker nodes in the Docker Swarm, right? So run containers on the Swarm cluster, right? Run container on Swarm cluster. Swarm, guys, run container on Swarm cluster. Right, scaling the services, guys. Scaling the services. See, guys, all these things we are going to discuss in the Docker, guys. Total 10 topics we are going to discuss. First, we are going to discuss about introduction. Next, we are going to understand Docker installation process, Docker architecture, Docker commands, right? Working with the Docker files, Docker images, Docker containers, Docker volumes, Docker compose, and Docker swarm. All these things we are going to discuss in our Docker sessions, guys. Okay, once Docker is completed, so next, the most important one, guys, right? If you want to get the job, right, this Kubernetes is very, very important. Right? If you guys don't have Kubernetes in your resume, it is very difficult to get the job, guys. Kubernetes is very, very important tool, guys, not only for the DevOps engineers, right, for developers also. For developers, Java developers also, Kubernetes is very, very important. Kubernetes is very, very important. Here we are going to spend more time on the Kubernetes, guys. Right, what we are going to discuss in the Kubernetes. First, we are going to understand introduction of Kubernetes. Introduction of Kubernetes. In introduction of the Kubernetes, what we are going to discuss? What is containerization? Again I'm going to talk what is containerization. Right, what is containerization? Right, next, guys, right, what is orchestration? Kubernetes is orchestration tool. What is orchestration? Right, so what orchestration tools are available in market? Orchestration tools. What orchestration tools are available in market? Next, guys, we need to compare both, guys. What? Both Docker Swarm and Kubernetes. Kubernetes we need to compare. Docker Swarm and Kubernetes we need to compare. Next, right, Kubernetes introduction. Kubernetes introduction. I will give Kubernetes introduction. Next, features, guys. Features of Kubernetes. Next, guys, terminology. This is very, very important, guys. Kubernetes terminology. All these things we are going to understand in the introduction part, guys. right? All these things. What is containerization? What is orchestration? What orchestration tools are available in the market? What is the differences? I need to compare Docker Swarm and Kubernetes. Kubernetes introduction, features of the Kubernetes, Kubernetes terminology. All these things we are going to understand. Okay, next guys, once this introduction part is completed, next I'm going to talk about Kubernetes architecture. This is very, very important guys. If you want to work with Kubernetes, first you guys should have complete knowledge on the Kubernetes architecture guys. Kubernetes architecture. We have so many components guys. We have so many components in the Kubernetes architecture. We need to understand about all those components guys. See, Kubernetes architecture guys. And we have multiple components guys. We need to understand about all these components. What components are there? Just to have a look into this architecture guys. You guys can understand how many components we have in the architecture. Right, this is the Kubernetes architecture. Here we have the master node and worker nodes are available. Inside the master node we have multiple components. Inside the worker node we have multiple components. We need to understand each and every component in detail. Then only we can able to work with the Kubernetes guys. See, inside the master node, we have API server, scheduler, controller manager, etcd. What is API server? What is scheduler? What is controller manager? What is etcd? All these things we need to understand. Next, coming to worker nodes, we have pods are available. Inside the container, inside the pods, we have the containers. Right? You can maintain single container or multiple containers also inside the pods. Docker engine, kubelet, kubeproxy. These are the components in the worker nodes. And here we have the kubelet and the UI user interface are available. See, we need to understand all these components guys. The combination of master node and worker nodes is called as cluster. One cluster guys. Cluster is nothing but what? Combination of this master node and worker nodes. We will call it as cluster guys. Kubernetes cluster. Right? Inside the Kubernetes cluster, we have multiple components. We need to understand all these components in detail guys. Then only we can work on this Kubernetes guys. Okay. Here I will explain all these things guys. Kubernetes architecture I will explain it here. In the Kubernetes architecture, whatever the components are there, everything I will explain it here guys. Right? Master node. Next worker nodes. Next here we have right control plane. What is control plane? Next we have API server. Next we have right scheduler is available. Right, next we have scheduler. Next we have right controller manager. Next we have etcd. Next guys, after etcd, what is kubelet? Next, what is kubeproxy? Next guys, runtime engine, Docker runtime engine. Next here we have pods are available. Next here we have containers are available. Next here we have right after this containers we have kubectl. kubectl is available, right? So all these things guys, see guys, master node, worker node, control plane, API server, scheduler, control manager, etcd. Up to here one part. Kubelet, kubeproxy, runtime engine, pods, containers, right? All these things. These are the one part guys. Next, kubectl is available and UI guys. UI user interface is available. Right? UI is available. See guys. So these are the right. 1 minute guys. Right? These are the components in the master node guys. These are the components in the worker node, guys. Right? These are the kubectl and right, user interface, guys. If you want to communicate with the master node, we can communicate by using kubectl or user interface. We will run our commands in the kubectl. Kubectl will give those commands to master node. Master node will assign the work to worker nodes, guys. See, guys, I have divided, guys. These components are belongs to master node. These components are belongs to worker node. See, guys, inside the worker node, what we have, Docker engine is available. Right here I have written runtime engine. Next, kubelet kubeproxy is available. Right here I have written kubelet kubeproxy. Next, we have the pods. Right, we have the pods. Inside the pods, we have the containers. Guys. All these are the components in the worker nodes. Coming to here, right, what we have, guys, control plane. Master node, we will call it as the control plane also. Inside the control plane, API server is available, right, scheduler is available, right, controller manager is available, etcd is available. We will discuss, guys, what all these things we will discuss in detail, guys. See, to communicate with the master node, what we are using, kubectl or user interface we are using, guys. By using kubectl and user interface, we are going to communicate with the master node, guys. So this is the architecture of the Kubernetes. We need to understand all the components, guys. Then only we can work on this Kubernetes, guys. Right. Next, guys. Once this Kubernetes architecture is completed, so then we are going to understand about environment setup. This is very, very important, guys. Right. So environment setup we are going to do, guys. Environment setup. Environment setup, guys. Here I'm going to show how to set up the cluster, guys. How to set up the cluster on our own. Right here, AWS is providing one cluster which is EKS, guys. AWS is providing one cluster which is EKS. With that you can able to work. But here we are going to spend a lot of time to understand all these Kubernetes components. If you use that AWS providing cluster that much of time, lot of bill will be generated, guys. Lot of bill will generate. So that's why here I'm going to show how to set up our own cluster. How to set up self-manager cluster, right? We will create the self-manager cluster and we will practice all the Kubernetes related stuff in the self-manager cluster only. Later, right, I will discuss that EKS also. I will show some of the examples with EKS also. But in real time, we will use cloud providing clusters only, guys. We won't create the self-manager clusters, but in our practice purpose, we are creating self-manager clusters. Right, in the environment setup, right, we are going to understand how to set up the cluster. How to set up the cluster. How to set up the cluster. Next, we are going to understand self-managed clusters. What is self-managed cluster? What is self-managed cluster? Right. So what is a provider managed cluster? Provider means cloud provider. Right. What we have, provider managed clusters. What is provider managed clusters? Next case. Right here, mini cubes. Right. What is mini cube? What is mini cube? Right. What is mini cube? What is Kubedium? What is Kubedium? What is Kubedium? Right. Next here, right, we are going to discuss the differences between Minikube versus Kubedium. We are going to understand the differences. Right. We are going to understand these differences. Next, we are going to understand AWS providing EKS cluster also, guys. All these things we are going to understand, guys. By using Minikube, we can able to create the single node cluster. By using Minikube, we are going to create the single node cluster. If you want to create the multi-node cluster, Minikube won't work. We need to go with Kubedium. Here we are going to understand how to create the multi-node cluster by using Kubedium. In real time, always we will work with multi-node clusters only. That's why we are going to understand how to create the multi-node cluster by using Kubedium. If you want to create the single node cluster, Minikube is enough. With Minikube, you can able to create the single node cluster. Self-manager cluster means whatever the clusters you are creating by using Minikube and Kubedium, those clusters we will call it as self-manager clusters. We only need to manage those clusters. If anything is happened, we are only the responsible for those things. We need to correct the issues, guys. Provider managed cluster means AWS is providing the cluster, Amazon is providing the cluster, GCP is providing the cluster. Those are the provider managed clusters. Right? By using Minikube, we can able to create the single node cluster. By using Kubedium, we can able to create the multi-node cluster. Okay, fine guys. Once this environment setup is completed, we are going to understand the pod life cycle. That is very, very important, guys. Right here, we are going to create the pods, right? That pod life cycle we need to understand. Pod life cycle we are going to understand it here, guys. And here, what we are going to discuss it here, guys. What we are going to understand it here, guys. See here we are going to understand pods introduction. What is pods? We are going to understand pods introduction first, guys. First, we are going to understand pod introduction. Next, guys, here pod creation types. How many ways we can create the pods? Right, types of pod creations. Types of pod creations. Types of pod creations we are going to understand. Next, guys. And here we can create the pods in two types, guys. One is the interactive pod creation. Second one is the declarative pod creation, guys. What is interactive pod creation? Interactive pod creation. Next, we are going to understand declarative pod creation. Declarative pod creation we are going to understand. Interactive pod creation, declarative pod creation. Next, we are going to understand pod manifest files. Pod manifest files. How to create the pod manifest files we are going to understand. Next, right, kubectl commands. Right, we need to understand some commands, guys. If you want to work with kubectl, we need to understand some commands, guys. Kubectl commands we are going to understand here. Next, we are going to understand, right, how to play with the pods. Right, playing with the pods. Playing with the pods. Right, playing with the pods we are going to understand. Next, guys. Next, manifest syntax, guys. How to write the manifest files, that syntaxes. Manifest syntaxes. Manifest syntaxes we are going to understand. Right, guys. Next, guys. Right, what is pod recreation? Right, pod recreation. Right, here whatever the static pods we have, static pods. Next, pod recreation. Pod recreation. Next, here pod deletion. Pod deletion. I want to delete the pod. How we will delete the pods? Next, pod labels. How we will create the labels for the pod? Right, pod labels. Next, guys, pod templates. How we will create the pod templates? Right, all these things we are going to discuss in the pod life cycle, guys. Pods are very, very important, guys. Right. Next, guys. Next, here, next we are going to discuss namespaces. Kubernetes namespaces. Kubernetes namespaces. Namespace is nothing but a package, guys. Namespace in Java, right? We have packages, right? Same here also. Kubernetes namespace, guys. Namespace is nothing but a package. Right? Inside the package, first we will create the packages. Inside the packages, we will create all our pods and all our services, guys. All our pods and services. Here we have some default packages also. If you are not specifying the package name, by default, it will use the default packages only. Here we have some default packages also, guys. We will discuss all those things, guys. Here Kubernetes namespaces, default namespaces we have. Right? What we are going to discuss it here, guys. What is namespace? What is namespace? Next, here default namespaces. Next, how to create the custom namespaces. How to create the custom namespaces. Right? How to work with Kubernetes namespaces. Right? How to work with namespaces. All these things we are going to discuss, guys. Okay. Next, guys, after completing this, we are going to discuss about, this is very, very important, guys. It Kubernetes services. Kubernetes services. Compulsory question, guys. How you will expose the pod? Right? How you will expose the pod outside of the cluster? Here, whatever the pod is there, I want to expose that pod to outside of the cluster, guys. Within the cluster, anybody can able to access. But my application should be accessible from outside of the cluster also. And from URL, I want to access my application. How you can expose your pod outside of the cluster? This is compulsory interview question. By using Kubernetes services, we can expose the pods to outside of the cluster. Here we have multiple services are available, guys. Cluster IP service is available, node port is available, load balancer is available. So like this, we have multiple services we have available in the Kubernetes. By using these services, we can expose the pods to outside of the cluster. All those things we are going to discuss it here, guys. And for that also we need to write one manifest file, guys. Service manifest file we need to write. Now here, what is Kubernetes? What is Kubernetes service? What is Kubernetes service? Next, why we need Kubernetes service? To expose the pods. Why we need Kubernetes services? Why we need Kubernetes services? Right. Next, how to create Kubernetes service? How to create Kubernetes services? How to create Kubernetes services? Next, types of services. Types of services. And we have three types of services. We have three types of services. What three types are there? Right. Cluster IP service is available. Next, we have node port is available. Next, we have node port service is available. Next, we have load balancer is available. Load balancer is available. These are the types of services we have to expose the pods to outside of the cluster. Right? If you want to do this, we need to write the service manifest file. How to write the service manifest file? Service manifest file. Right? And service commands. We have some commands which are related to services. Service commands we need to understand. Next, guys. Next, right? Pod expose outside cluster, guys. Here with the service, how you will expose the pod to outside of the cluster? Pod expose. Right? Outside of cluster. Outside cluster. Right? We are going to understand all these things, guys. Okay. Services, compulsory entry questions will come on this Kubernetes services. Fine, guys. Once this Kubernetes service is completed, we are going to understand that the most important objects in the Kubernetes. Kubernetes objects. We have several objects are available. We have several compulsory questions, guys. If you put Kubernetes in your resume, right, 80 to 90% of the questions will come on the Kubernetes only. Right? If you gone through our content, you can answer all the questions, guys. Whatever they will ask, everything you can able to answer. Right? We are going to discuss in detail all those things we are going to discuss, guys. Kubernetes objects, guys. Here we are going to discuss replication controller object. Replication controller object. Next here, replica set object. Replica set. They will ask what is the difference between replication controller and replica set. Right. Next here we have, they will ask the differences, guys. Differences. They will ask replication controller versus replica set. Replication controller versus replica set they will ask. Next, guys, what is multi-selectors? What is multi-selectors, guys? That is the only main differences between these, guys. Selectors is the differences between replication controller and replica set, guys. In replication controller, we will have single selector. In replica set, we can define the multi-selectors. That is the difference, guys. What is multi-selectors? What is multi-selectors? Next, guys, what is a daemon set? What is a daemon set, guys? This is commonly at multiple times this question, right? This question asked me, guys. What is daemon set? What is a daemon set, guys? Next here, right? When to use daemon set? When to use daemon set? When to use daemon set? Next guys, what is the stateful sets? Stateful sets. Next, deployment. Next, rollout and rollback. Rollbacks, right? So these are the main important Kubernetes objects, guys. And here one more thing, this is the compulsory question, guys. Whenever you have put Kubernetes in your profile, this is the compulsory question. What is that, guys? Deployment strategies, guys. Deployment strategies. What deployment strategies are available? Guys, this is the compulsory question. Recreate strategy. Next, rolling update strategy. The very important question. Right, this is the compulsory question, which is blue-green deployment. What is blue-green deployment? This is compulsory question. Right, so these are the things which we are going to discuss in the Kubernetes objects, guys. Next guys, what we are going to discuss in Kubernetes, right, auto scaling. Right, why we are using Kubernetes instead of Docker Swarm means this is the main reason, guys. Kubernetes auto scaling. And if you go with the Docker Swarm, there is no auto scaling facility. You need to do manually, guys. Scale up and scale down. You need to do manually in the Docker Swarm. That is one of the main limitation with the Docker Swarm, guys. But in the production environment, how you can do this auto scaling manually? How you can do the scaling manually, guys? Scale up and scale down. How you can do manually in the production environment? You will get the access for the production environment. Application is in live. Application live, guys. Right? When traffic will come, when traffic will reduce, when traffic will increase, how you can able to know that? How you can do manually this scaling process in a production environment? We can't able to do that. That's why we are going for auto scaling. Based on the traffic, automatically I want to increase the number of containers. Based on the traffic, I want to decrease. That facility is not available in the Docker Swarm. That's why we are going with this Kubernetes. In Kubernetes, we have this facility. Okay, so here we are going to discuss Kubernetes auto scaling. Here what we are going to discuss in auto scaling, guys. What is auto scaling? What is auto scaling? We are going to discuss. What is auto scaling? Next here, horizontal scaling. And when we are talking about the scaling we can do in two ways. One is horizontal scaling. And the second one is vertical scaling. Guys. When we are talking about the scaling, we can do in two ways. One is the horizontal scaling, another one is the vertical scaling. And here, horizontal pod auto scaling, vertical pod auto scaling, we need to discuss. Pods we need to scale up and pods we need to scale down, guys. And that's why we will call it as HPA, horizontal pod auto scaling. Next here we will talk about VPA, vertical pod auto scaling, horizontal pod auto scaling, vertical pod auto scaling. Next here we need to talk about node auto scaling, guys. And here we have the multiple nodes, node auto scaling. Next, guys, metric server. This is very, very important, guys. Metric server. And next, guys, here next we are going to use busy box, guys. I want to increase the stress, guys. That's why here I am going to use busy box. I'm going to use to increase the stress on the servers, guys. Next, guys, watch pods with horizontal pod auto scaling. Pods with HPA. And all these things we are going to discuss in auto scaling, guys. Okay. Next, guys. Next here also we have the volumes, guys. Kubernetes volumes we are going to discuss. Kubernetes volumes we are going to discuss. Here we are going to talk about introduction of the volumes, why we need these volumes, what types of Kubernetes volumes are available, and all these things we are going to discuss. Okay. See here, we are going to talk about introduction of volumes. Introduction of volumes we are going to understand. Next here, why we need volumes. Next, types of Kubernetes volumes. Types of Kubernetes volumes. Here we have multiple types are there, guys. Right, multiple types are there. We are going to discuss all those things, guys. Okay. Right, guys. Next we will talk about right here. Next we will talk about all these things, guys. We will talk about this. This EKS cluster, guys. And here we will talk about EKS cluster. Till now we have seen everything in the self-managed cluster, right? Here we are going to understand how to work with EKS cluster also. Next, guys, Helm charts are available. Helm charts, guys. Helm charts are available. What is Helm? What is Helm architecture? What is Helm setup? What is Helm implementation? Limitations of the Helm. Everything we are going to discuss it here. See, guys, here. See, guys, in our Docker we have the yum package manager is available. Apt package manager is available. Same way in Kubernetes also we have one package manager which is called as Helm package manager. How yum will work, how apt module will work, same way Helm also is going to work in the Kubernetes. Here first we are going to understand what is Helm. Right, next here Helm architecture. Next here we have Helm setup. Next we have Helm implementation. Next we have Helm limitations. What limitations are there in Helm? Helm limitations. All these things we are going to discuss in the Helm, guys. Okay. Next, guys. Next we are going to discuss, right? So Prometheus. What is this Prometheus, guys? If you want to monitor the cluster logs, then we need to go for this Prometheus and Grafana. Here we are going to understand what is Prometheus. Right, next, integration with the workloads, guys. Right, we need to integrate Prometheus with the workloads, guys. Integrate with workloads. Guys. Next, Prometheus setup. How you will do this Prometheus setup? Right, explore metrics, guys. Here we are going to explore the metrics, guys. Next, Prometheus use cases, guys. All these things we are going to discuss it here, guys. Right, Prometheus and Grafana also we are going to discuss it here, guys. Right, next here we will talk about the Grafana. Here only I will give, otherwise here only I will give Prometheus and Grafana. Next, guys. Next here we are going to talk about, right, here we are going to discuss some of the essentials are there, guys. Here we have some of the essentials like config maps. Config maps is available. Next we have secrets. What is secrets? Next, guys. Next, secrets are there. Right, these things we are going to discuss it here. Next, guys. Right, at the end we are going to discuss about the project setup. We are going to discuss it here, guys. Project setup we are going to discuss it here. Right here, Spring Boot application deployment. Right, Spring Boot application. I will show end-to-end deployment of the Spring Boot application, guys. Spring Boot application, it end-to-end deployment process. I will show it here, guys. Okay, so at the end I will give the interview questions also. Right here only I'm going to put. See guys, how much content we are going to discuss in the Kubernetes. Very huge content we are going to discuss in the Kubernetes. If you go through this content, any question you can answer in the interview, guys. They can ask any question. Easily you guys can answer the questions, guys. Okay. See guys, this is the content, guys. Course content of the Docker and Kubernetes, guys. This is the course content of the Docker and Kubernetes. In detail, we are going to understand about the Kubernetes, guys. Guys, just tell me how many days it will take to complete this Kubernetes, guys. How many days it will take to complete this Kubernetes, guys? To complete this Kubernetes, how many days it will take? Including project, guys. Is it possible to finish it in 10 hours? 1 week, 10 days? Oh, guys, it is not possible. That I'm going to spend 30 hours, guys, only on Kubernetes. Almost I'm going to spend 25 to 30 hours, guys. And once Kubernetes is started, I will take 2 hours, guys. Daily 2 hour sessions I will take, guys. 2 hours I will spend on this Kubernetes. And I will try to finish it in 15 days, daily 2 hours, guys. Right, to complete this project setup and Kubernetes, I need 30 hours, guys. Right, 30 hours is required. Okay, right. So to complete this Docker, I need at least, right, so 1 week to 10 days, guys. 1 week to 10 days is required to complete this Docker. Right, to complete this Kubernetes, I need 15 days, guys. Daily 2 hours if I take, 15 days is required to complete this Kubernetes, guys. Okay, almost we are going to spend 25 days to complete this Docker and Kubernetes, guys. Right, content is more, it will take time, guys. Please try to understand. Content is very high, guys. We need to discuss each and everything with the practicals, guys. With the practicals, we need to understand each and everything, guys. Please be patient, guys. It will take 25 days. To complete this Docker and Kubernetes with the project setup, I'm going to spend 25 days, guys. Okay. And once this Kubernetes and Docker is completed, right, in interview, you can answer any type of question, guys. Right, you can explain with the practicals, guys. With the practical examples, you guys can explain in the interviews if you complete this course. Right, guys. Is this clear? Right, same timings, guys. Daily class timing, it will start at 9 p.m. guys. Right, class timings, it will start at 9 p.m. to 10:30. I'm going to spend, guys. 10:30 p.m. IST. Right, guys. Once Kubernetes started, I will increase the time also, guys. Up to 2 hours also it will go. Right, next, guys. Right, class recordings available with 3 months access. Next, guys, right, class notes will be provided in Telegram group, guys. Keep the recordings also with you, guys. Why? Because so if you guys have any doubt at the time of practicing, keep those recordings also with you, guys. When you are going to do the setup, when you are going to create the self-manager clusters, keep that recordings also. Right, guys, try to attend live sessions, guys. If you guys have any questions, you guys can clarify those questions in the class itself. Some people are feeling anyway recordings they are going to share, we can listen those recordings later. No, guys, please try to spend the time. Please try to attend the live sessions daily. Recording separate group. Already we have so many groups, guys. We are getting confused. For which group we are sending. So now 3 batches are running, guys. Evening 2 batches, morning 1 batch. Everyone will ask, create separate group for notes, create separate group for recordings. And if we want to maintain separate groups for notes and recordings and daily communication, see for batch how many groups, right, we need to maintain for each batch. Just try to understand that. AWS recording classes you don't have. Rajesh, you don't have the AWS recording classes. Why you don't have, man? So in the Google Drive, already Google Drive they are sharing, right? Guys, we are not sharing the recordings in the Telegram group. In the Telegram, we will share only class notes. Recordings you guys can access through Google Drive only. Earlier, we supposed to share through the Telegram only, guys. But in the middle, we faced some issue with the Telegram. And we faced some issues with the Telegram, guys. So that's why we shared some recordings in the Google Drive, guys. And we will discuss these things tomorrow. Right, guys. Up to here, clear, guys. Content wise, clear. Recordings, right? Recordings we will share in the Google Drive, guys. Class notes we will share in the Telegram group. Anyone have any questions in the content, guys? Please let me know. Fine, guys. Guys, here whatever I mentioned, fees we will discuss, guys. We will discuss that. Talk to Sridhar, guys. He will tell. Guys. So here whatever I mentioned, each and everything I will discuss with the practicals, guys. So you guys are going to get very good experience on the Docker and Kubernetes once this course is completed. Try to attend live sessions, guys. Practice daily, guys. That's it. That's it. What I'm expecting from you, your end. Remaining everything, I will take care, guys. Please try to attend for the live sessions and not. Don't think we can listen that recordings, backup recordings. Don't think like that. Try to attend the live sessions, guys. Then you guys can clarify your questions. Docker and Kubernetes is very, very important, guys. Very, very important. So we came to end, guys. Just 20 to 25 days. You guys concentrate, right? We can finish all these things. Okay. Fine, guys. I'm going to stop here. Right. Tomorrow we will continue at 9 p.m. guys. Tomorrow I will start. Right. I will start with Docker, guys. Okay. Thank you, guys. Good night.